When you're on your team, you stop.
Nothing good.
Pray.
Well, it's great to see everybody. We're really excited about our home opener. Just a couple things, get there early. We got some construction going on, as everybody knows, and so probably going to slow some stuff up. Excited to honor the 1973 team this Saturday in the home opener. One of the best teams that Tech's had, and so excited to see those guys taking on a great team. Oregon Ducks. Got to watch a lot of film of them from last year, and then, of course, on Saturday they're a really talented football team, and so it's going to be a great test for us. Don't know Coach Lanning very well. I met him at the draft. He had a corner drafted last year, and know a lot of people that do know him. Great guy. He's done a phenomenal job. Last year he did a great job year one, and he and I are sitting in the same boat year two at our schools. I do know their offensive coordinator really well. Will is a Texas high school football coach. He was at Lake Travis, was at UTSA as their offensive coordinator, did a phenomenal job with them. And then their co-defensive coordinator, I know him really well, Chris Hampton. He was at Tulane, and he recruited Cedar Hill for a long time, so know him really well. Excited to see those guys. Man, you're talking about extremely talented team. We're looking at the numbers of snaps that they've taken. They're one of the few teams probably in the country that are a little bit older than us. Got a great quarterback, an NFL quarterback in Bo Nix. Got an NFL running back, and Bucky, number 0, Bucky Irving, and then they've got an NFL receiver. I know that they have other NFL players on offense, but man, those 3 guys really stand out and are really good football players. And then defensively, their defensive line really stands out. Very physical as a defense, and you expect that from a head coach that's a defensive coordinator. He was at Georgia, and the way they play, you expect a guy their defense is going to play really hard. So we're going to get that out of Oregon. Couple guys that will be out. One will be out 4 to 6 weeks is Jacob Rodriguez. It's went out with 5:42 in the first quarter. Man, that was a big loss for us the other night. It's his foot. It's like a mid foot sprain. We're going to get him in a boot, kind of, try to get some weight off of him for a few weeks and then re-examine it. And then the other that's going to be out, it's a weird deal. Isaac Smith, whenever he had a knee injury, when we MRI'd it, it was all old injuries. And so it's like, okay, you've been playing with it for, we think, at least since he's been in college. And could he play through it? And, between the doctors, our trainers, and myself, we were like, we're not going to take this chance. As much as Isaac was really upset with us, don't want to take a chance with a knee like that. It's crazy. He's been playing with a partially torn ACL for 2.5 years. And, it shows up. His knee got irritated. We MRI'd it, and then it was like, okay, he's been playing with it. He played the way he played. We all saw the way he played at the end of the year. If this is what it was going to be, that he could still be effective. But, at some point, whenever you're like that, then it's probably going to tear all the way, and then you're looking at, setting the kid back. We just didn't feel like it was worth it to take a shot that way. So those are the two guys off the top of my head. We got some guys banged up and everything, but we expect everybody besides Jacob that played on Saturday to play against Oregon. Nehemiah will be, even though he was full go, he just didn't have a lot of reps. The situation that we're in the game, we really stuck with the guys that had the most reps, but he'll be full tilt tomorrow. That's going to be a huge guy to get back. We're going to try to play him everywhere we can in the offense like we did in the spring, and so that's going to be a big boost offensively. But those two guys are the guys that one played on Saturday, but the other two that are going to be out for a certain number of time. With that, open up with any questions.
Start with Collier, then we'll go to Sean over here in the third row after that.
I'll start with an injury. So how's Wilburn doing, and how do you think the offensive line did without him?
Wilburn's doing good. He will progress throughout the week. Do expect him to play Saturday, barring any setbacks. There was some good things that we did in the offensive line, and there was some things, it's crazy. And, hats off to Wyoming. I mean, I don't want to take anything away, but, you come out and you jump up 17-0, and I don't know we took a deep breath. We took the foot off the gas. That's all on me. And so, we got to figure out how to, play that way for the entire 4 quarters with that kind of sense of urgency. They did not play, and they'll be the first guys to tell you they didn't play the way they expected to play. But I did see much improvement from this year to last year, and we'll be tested this week, and I think we'll definitely play better. The great thing, we said it, early in camp, and it showed up. You had a kid like Landon Peterson that stepped in, played really well when Dennis went out, and it's because he started games. And so we do have really good depth in the offensive line, and we'll keep growing there.
You mentioned looking at film of Oregon from last year. Can you take much from what they did this past week? I know they got a new offensive coordinator, like you mentioned, but what can you learn from that game against Portland State?
Just their playmakers. Bo's a year older too, and he's a seasoned quarterback. I mean, he's a guy that could have come out and he would have got drafted, and he decided to come back. And, I love whenever guys do that. I think it's great for the player to keep growing. I think it's great for the university. And so you see that he's more decisive throwing the football. He's got a big arm, so, you saw that last year. But you see their playmakers. I mean, they're extremely explosive on offense. This is going to be one of the best backs and backfield that we face all year long, but probably the best back we face all year long. And so you see that jumps off. And then they have they're different on defense. I mean, they have some returning starters, but they also have a bunch of guys that this will be their first year starting for Oregon, not college football, but it's first year starting for Oregon. And so you see the improvement on that side of the ball.
It's been marked since the day Tyler got here, but now that it's game week, how do you handle him different, or how do you prepare him for that day and not get him too amped up?
He's an older guy, so I think he understands. Like, I sent him a text this morning. I have a leadership committee that make up our captains, and I said, hey, I want you to be a captain this weekend. Are you good with that? Because I didn't want to put him in a situation that, he was too amped. He goes, Coach, I'm 100% good with that, and didn't surprise me one bit because he's not happy with the way he played. And so, he's going to have a great week. But you just kind of keep him – you just got to understand it's about us. I mean, we've got a lot of things that we got to improve from Saturday, and so if you focus more on them, then that allows you to kind of take away from what you need to really get better at. And so I think, you just go out and play. The thing that's a little bit different, because Terrell Tillman's another guy that, that played for Oregon, that plays for us. There was a big turnover on that roster. If you look at the last 2 years, I think, and I could be totally wrong, somebody probably could help me out or could look it up pretty easy, but that's like a 75% turnover on that roster than whenever Coach got there. And so between 2 signing classes he's had in the transfer portal, that's quite a bit different than – I know Tyler has guys that are friends that, he played with, but there's not a lot, necessarily left that was with him, a few years ago.
Coach, after reviewing the tape, what did you learn about your team, and how do you feel your team is prepared for Oregon?
Watching it, a lot of frustration as a group. We had a great meeting yesterday. I always ask Lance because they lift before they get to me. And I always ask Lance, how is the lift? Because it's going to tell you a lot about a team. It's going to tell you a lot about the mood that they're coming in the building. And, we had a great lift. The message is really don't let Wyoming beat you twice. Like, no matter what happens Saturday, we cannot allow last Saturday to affect us other than learning from it, right? And so the things, watching on film, the things that we have to improve, we've got to finish blocks. There were too many times that we had good run plays on the front side, and you would have a defensive tackle or a defensive end, it might have been a 4-yard gain, but it should have been a 20-yard gain, so we've got to stay on blocks better. Communication, and it showed up, and we'll grow from it. It showed up when we lost Jacob. The communication on defense suffered whenever he went out. I thought that was a big part of that. And then we go through this. We were 2 of 7 on the plan to win. When you're even to have a chance to win, you got to get to 3. And then that depends on what 3 they are. They got to be the right 3. And if you go back, we win the 3 and we win number 7, attack the situations. If we get a 4th down stop when it's 4th and 7, that means they don't score the percentage in the red zone for touchdowns in the red zone, and they don't win the 4th down conversions, right? They go 2 for 2 instead of 1 for 2 if we get that stop. And so that's how games are, man. It's going to come down to that, of winning and losing. The biggest, though, thing that we have to improve is don't beat yourself. If you look at their, I want to say, first 3 points as far as like 2 touchdowns and a field goal, it could have been the first 4. Every drive was continued by us with a personal foul, with a flag that I don't think was a foul, but it was thrown. The late hit on Josiah Pierre and the targeting call. You should call targeting and review it. That wasn't a late hit, but that moved him down. I mean, it's 3rd and 6, and we get the personal foul. You get a pass interference call on Malik. It was a lazy rep, and so, not Malik, but Shad. So, again, those things, whenever you get in close games or in any games, you can't beat yourself, and that's what we did. We truly put ourselves in really bad situations on the defensive side of the ball.
There's been a lot of comments about how fans should react after the disappointing loss. How do you respond to them and encourage them to still come out as important it is for the home opener to be?
Well, there's two things. One, I think they ought to react the way they want to react. I mean, I've read all of it. Now I encourage that. Literally, I got on the plane and Debbie said, "Don't get on social media." She already knows I'm a messed up person in the head. I really am. There's a coach, and I totally understand where he's coming from. But Sark said, "Embrace the hate," and some of that stuff fuels the fire. I did recommend the players not do that, because I'm 52 years old, and what anybody says. I've been doing this for a long time. I grew up coaching in South Dallas, where football is life. Like everything around those communities is. So I've heard this, before, and I get it, man. They're fans, and I totally understand it. And trust me, I feel the exact same way. There's nothing that's been written or put in social media that I feel the exact same way. I mean, trust me, I'm saying it in my own head. And, some of the comments in my own head if that would have got out on social media, you ought to have been all going like, what's this dude saying? Did he really just say that? And so I get it. The one thing I will say about showing up that I'll never question with the Red Raider fans and alumni, they're going to show up. They have great pride in this university. And they showed up in Wyoming. I was so proud to walk through that crowd wearing the red and black. And, I don't see anybody staying away, and I hope they don't, because it's going to be a great home opener. There's so many great things going on. I mean, we're seeing iron being put up now for the second level. You've got a brand new field. The lighting's going to be incredible, and we're going to play really hard. We're going to play really hard for them. And so you can't, the people, whenever you're talking about fans, you can't be a fair weather fan. You're either in or you're not. And if you're in, say whatever you want to say. If you're not in and you're not all the way in, that's when you maybe need to shut your mouth. And so I'm one of those guys that I'm all in. This team's all in, and I know this fan base is all in. It's going to be a great opportunity. That's the word that we've used a lot, even before the Wyoming game, that we have a great opportunity in front of us. That's a great question. I appreciate that question.
Coach, you can't help but notice all the 1-0 signs everywhere when you walk in. What are you trying to instill with that new mindset, maybe starting today?
Yeah, it's really, it's got to be week to week. I told them, I even ended it yesterday because 24 hours was not up when we finished practice yesterday. And I looked at Mason Tharp and I said, hey, 24 hours isn't up, so I'm still going to feel sorry for myself. I'm still going to be upset. I said, but you're not going to see the same guy tomorrow because the 24 hours are up. You can't let winning or losing define the next week because it will hurt you. It will catch up with you. There are a lot of teams that are finding out how they can prepare and play better off of losing, and that's us. There's a lot of teams around the country right now that are going to find out if they can play after success, we all see it. We see teams that win a huge game, and then the very next week, they don't play as well. We had that last year. Go back last year, we beat Texas, and we don't play as well the first half of K-State, right? And it's because we didn't handle success very well. And so the 1-0 mindset is whatever happened last week doesn't define you this week unless you allow it to. And so we've got to get ready for Oregon, and we're going to. There's guys. We had even though it's Labor Day, the Red Raiders labor on Labor Day. We had open weight room, and we've already had a great group of guys come in. We've already got guys watching film. Just saw Tyler as I was walking through. He was heading in for his normal routine, and so the 1-0 is, that everything's about this week, and then next week, it's going to be, everything's going to be taken down. And it's going to have a new logo on there.
Coach, with Jacob out, who all's in the mix at inside linebacker, and could somebody be moved around?
Yeah, that's a great question. We're actually, because Ben Roberts has been taking reps at Mike. We're actually going to move Josiah, who was extremely productive. Man, I was really proud of the kid. And, he's been really critical of himself because he knows he could have played better, but I think he ended up with 14 tackles. We're going to put him at will where Jacob was and let Ben have the Mike role. He's going to start for us this week just because that's where the majority of his reps are. Ty Matthews will play both and play a lot. You're going to see Trent Lowe. You're going to see Ty Kana. He's back. He played special teams. You're going to see Wesley Smith, Michael Dingle. And so those guys, but we're going to start off with Ben Roberts and Josiah Pierre. And, we're excited about Ben. He had a great spring, and didn't get going to camp until really that last week. And, it's tough with Ty and Ben because those two guys, and really if you think Ty Kana, those guys didn't get camp. They basically had a week and a half, and they got thrown in there playing probably more reps than what we expected them to play just because of the type of game it was.
The pass rush was non-existent for a lot of the game. Did that surprise you? Why did that happen? And do you expect that to improve moving forward?
Well, here's the thing I would say about that. I don't know if it was non-existence. What I think, so if I had my notes in here from the game that I met with the coaches, is I thought our pass rush lanes were absolutely horrible. I mean, it was horrible. You think about how many times he escaped the pocket. And that is that he escaped because we were putting pressure, but we didn't either play off of each other. Steve Linton, he didn't have a sack, but he put pressure on the quarterback. And then we got out of our rush lanes, and then we came free a couple of times and we don't make the tackle. Josiah comes free, unblocked, doesn't make the tackle. The quarterback escapes. And so I think that the pressure was there at times. It's just we have to be like the number one for us whenever I talk to the coaches is we got to do a better job rushing the passer in our pass lanes. There was twice like Joseph Dataray has pressure, but he gets pushed past the quarterback, so he's on the wrong side of the quarterback for his rush lane. Duda Banks starts mirroring the quarterback instead of staying in his rush lane. So it allows the quarterback to escape. If he stays there, there's a sack, and so stuff like that. So on defense, that was number one. And then, on offense was finishing blocks. I thought that that was a big part of it. We kind of already talked about it, but I thought those were the two things. Those are my number ones on the side of the ball, and then number one on the side of the ball of special teams is make our field goals. You go back, our field goal kicker was phenomenal in camp. He comes out, he drills a 54-yarder right off the bat, and then he misses three. One, the block was on him. It was a low kick. And then, the other two, for a couple of reasons, were missed, and I would have never thought that. I mean, coming out of camp and then him having the success on his first kick for us, and I would have never thought that he would have been in the position that he was in. Thank God that we got it corrected and he got us into overtime.
Coach, you mentioned how talented Oregon is at receiver. They've got several different lengthy playmakers out there. Does that maybe put more emphasis this week on like your nickel and dime packages to throw more DBs on the field?
Yeah, we got to be careful with that because of the way they can run the football. But yes, I mean, you're going to see Lux. All three corners, I think they were pretty much equal, like one or two plays different when you're talking about the reps. But you're going to see him play a couple of different positions. I think that's going to be a big part of it because they are. I mean, I called out one receiver, but I could have called out two or three more. They're really explosive. They got a really good tight end, and so offensively they're explosive. So we're going to do some different things that way. And, we did it a little bit the other night with those guys being on the field, but we'll have to do it more against these guys. And, quite frankly, even if it is not a nickel or a dime, having him on the field more, the kid played really well. And not only played well in the passing game, you know, it's tough. We get a penalty to where we get an interception. We're going to have the ball on the 38-yard line. Go back to don't beat yourself. So we get a hands to the face. That's lack of discipline where your hand placement is supposed to be in a pass rush. You know, that was a game changer, or definitely a first half changer. But he also tackled really well. He showed up in the run game. And so having him on the field more, you know, definitely is going to benefit us.
Coach, last week you talked about Andrew Peasley's dual threat ability. Going into this game, is there any different game plan for Bo Nix? He came off a season where he had 14 rushing touchdowns and over 500 rushing yards. Is there a different game plan this year?
Yeah, you're going to have to know where. I mean, we know where he's at because he's going to touch the ball every play. But you're going to have to definitely, you know, there's going to be. That's where our rush lanes are extremely important. I mean, you cannot do what we did against any quarterback that we did on Saturday. But you've got to definitely got to make sure you're. You know, keep that integrity the way you're going to rush football. And then there's going to be different calls that you're going to have a spy on him, you know, depending on the down and distance and stuff like that. And then we're going to, with the guys that come free, you've got to get home and you got to make the tackle, you know, and that comes from tackling from the top down. A couple of times, you know, we were diving, even the last play, the 4th and 7. I mean, we blow a coverage, but Rabbit comes free. Been nice to tackle from the top down. Now you're in his throwing arm and stuff like that. And so definitely Bo definitely brings a threat that way.
Coach, what did you see from the offensive line this weekend? It seemed like Tyler had some clean pockets and they're getting a decent push on the run game. So what did you see in your opinion?
Well, it's a mixture. You know, we did. We you know, we had some time to throw the football. You know, and there's some plays that we could have made that, you know, we threw some bad balls. You know, one message for me to him this week or yesterday was whenever you watch the film, not necessarily watch the result of the play, but watch the mechanics, you know, with your feet, your arm angle, stuff like that, because we did protect him at times really well. I mean, one of the sacks that we gave up, and it was a great job by them, it was off of play action protection, and Dennis and Cameron, you know, ended up on the same guy instead of two different guys. And it was just, you know, a good scheme by them to where one guy came a little bit later than the other. And you know, Dennis pulled around and was going to pick up the first thing he saw. There was just a linebacker coming inside that, you know, and Cameron went to the same guy. And that was one of the sacks we gave up. But I thought that we got protection. You know, but the biggest thing in the run game is finishing, man. I mean, if you go back and stay on track, you know, don't chase. We probably have a touchdown on counter and frontside tackle chases instead of just working up to the next level. You know, and so stuff like that, you know, that you're going to improve from game 1 to game 2. Growing pains that you don't want to go through, but you have to, and so we'll be better up front.
It seemed like the Wyoming defensive line was really able to get Shuck's timing on his passes timed very well, so they were able to get a lot of hands on a lot of balls.
Yeah.
And if I remember correctly, he had a couple in the spring game as well that were tipped right at the line of scrimmage. Is that something you guys are working with Tyler about, trying to get a little bit more loft, especially trying to get over those defensive linemen?
I think kind of goes back to talking to him yesterday about, you know, watching your arm angle. You know, when that stuff happens, your elbow usually drops. You know, I think I've said it to Patrick before. If I hadn't, I'll say it now. Like, he's the best thing to happen to football and probably the worst thing to happen to quarterbacks in general, because there's only one Patrick Mahomes, and what he can do at his arm angle, most human beings cannot do. You know, but not that Tyler's emulating Patrick, I'm not saying that, but kind of if you look at quarterbacks in general, they watch film on other people, and that's not who you are. And so just talking to Tyler about, you know, getting back to the basics of your mechanics. Some of it's going to happen, man. You know, like a lot of the guys that did it in the spring, Blake Burris has a knack for it, but some of it, you know, is also, quite frankly, on the offensive line. You know, anytime that defensive lineman or a linebacker is going to put his hands up, then there's a lot of stuff exposed, and you got to finish off your blocks. And sometimes whenever you finish off your blocks, you can't put your arms up. And so some of that also goes with those guys staying in contact. It's hard to jump and knock a ball down whenever you're covered up with the offensive line. So it's a mixture of both. But definitely I go back to like really him focusing on his mechanics.
And you touched on a little bit earlier about the field goal kicking. You make any one of those and the game doesn't go to overtime.
Yeah.
How key is it going to be to this week to get him to forget about last week and move forward? Because it's not like you can sign another kicker.
No, when you have a game like that, there are so many things that, like, literally, there's one play, and it's not just one play. Like, I could name 60 of, like, one things that could happen, And so when I talked to Gino yesterday and we sat down, we went through and I said, okay, what happened here? What happened here? And what happened here whenever you did make this one? Okay, that's what you got to focus on because – there's nothing that you did Saturday that lost us the game. And because I could point to another X amount of plays, that if we do this, then the game's different. And so he's just like everybody else on the team. It's just there's like a bigger spotlight on him because, he goes out there and he's maybe has one attempt or – like in that game, he had 5 attempts, and so it shows up. And so you, again, with him, go back to your mechanics. Go back to why. The play right before half, it's one of those deals that we call it a whistle play. So we have it on the offense to where we've got to snap the ball on the whistle, and then we've got it in the kicking game. We got to snap the ball on the whistle. So he was expecting – Mac to stick his hands out. He goes off the timing of that, but on the whistle play, you can't do that because you are not – if you do that, then the time's out. You're not going to get the ball snapped. And so, he was a little late on the kick, and it was great to hear him talk me through it. And so you do it that way. It's logically why you missed this. Okay, well, let's focus on this, And he's a strong guy. He's done this. He's kicked last year, at HBU, and so he's going to come back and have – it was good that he sent us into overtime because now that gives him confidence that his last kick is what got us into overtime. And so you build off of that.
Thanks for Don.
Joey, back to the inside linebackers for a moment. Y'all talked a lot in camp about how good Wesley Smith was, but didn't seem to mention Trent Lowe much. But Trent got a lot of reps at key times Saturday night. What did he kind of do to put himself in position to be on the field at important times?
Yeah, our second live scrimmage, he made some really, really good plays. He's a really fast kid. It played really well for us. But whenever in that second scrimmage, he went with the twos and, really outplayed a lot of the other guys. And so whenever we got in that game the other night, I thought that, and he played pretty well. Whenever Jacob went out, I don't know how many linebackers that played well other than Josiah. But he didn't play bad, and it came off of that second scrimmage. He played so well, and he was with the second group, and and so him being an older guy, putting him in that position, felt like that was who he was kind of spelling Ty. It was between him and Ty whenever Jacob went out.
And Ben Roberts, obviously y'all have been very high on him for a long time. Just from a skill set standpoint, what has he done well to rapidly put himself in position?
He's a ex-safety whenever you're talking about his younger years in high school football that kind of grew and played some outside linebacker and who was recruited. We wanted to keep him inside. He has a really good knack for the passing game, which is going to be really good for this week. And he's really grown. He's as far as playing the run. it was tough on him. He didn't play a lot the other day, and it was really because of the position, because he had been playing Mike. But it's tough because not having camp, he wasn't the same guy that he was in the spring. But I think another full week will put him in really good position. We do feel like, of course, they're going to run the ball, but they're also going to throw the ball. And he gives us a really good person, linebacker-wise, to drop into coverage.
The star position, what went into the decision the other night? You started Brendan Jordan, who obviously you've been high on for a long time. Although Baskerville played, it seemed like even more snaps.
Yeah, he
what was
did.
kind of going on there?
So CJ had a turf toe earlier in the week, and we were like, he had missed some reps, because of the turf toe of trying to get him ready for the game. And so we started BJ out, and, going between adrenaline and our training staff, getting him ready, just being an older guy and then getting into the game that we were in, the dogfight, then, we went with him. BJ played a little bit throughout the game, but whenever CJ felt, he felt like he would be at full speed and felt good, then we just rode with him.
And I guess regarding Joseph Adedire, with the kind of camp he had, and I guess it's become apparent with him playing the other night as the thought of redshirting him out the window.
I don't know if I upset him about talking about redshirting or what, but he's kind of been a guy that's trending really, really high as far as his effort and the way he's playing. And, he'll be the first one to tell you he didn't play as well as he wanted to the other night. But really, I think he's played his way into a situation where I don't think we can redshirt him just because he's, too productive. And so then you see, how that position grows, and you've got another year probably to decide if you're going to do it or not. But I just don't see him, with the situation, the way he's playing, that we'll be able to do that. It's a good question.
All right, we'll have Coach Gerder here in just a minute.
All right, it's great seeing y'all.
All right, everybody, let's start with Sean Dillon.
Coach, after looking at the film, what did you see from the game and from the Wyoming game, and what do you need to address this week in preparation for Oregon?
Well, a couple things. I thought, for the most part, we fit the run pretty well. Seeing a two-back attack, very different than what we're used to. What we did not do a very good job of was stay in pass rush lanes against their quarterback. We let him convert some third downs that we got to fix immediately, because we're playing a quarterback this week that can really hurt you with his legs. We weren't disciplined as a football team. We had way too many penalties, and particularly on defense, that extended their drives. That really, was one of the big reasons they were able to continue their drives, and we got to get that fixed. So those were the major things. And then down on our red zone defense, we had poor communications a couple times.
So who were the players that did show you things that you wanted to see and give you a little bit of encouragement for the future?
We had I thought Rabbit played well, particularly early. not as consistent as we would like him to play, but I thought that he did some good things. JP had a lot of production, but he's got some things to refine. You know, being his first game as an inside linebacker, as you'd imagine, did some things well because he can run and he's a good football player, but you know, did some things that we got to refine. And then up front, I thought Tony and Jay Boog, you know, both were solid, you know, up front for us.
Got a big challenge on Saturday. Oregon put up over 80 points in their Week 1 opener. What do you guys need to improve on from last week to be able to compete with the Ducks, who are going to score a lot of points?
Well, it's a totally different animal that we're playing this week. Oregon has elite athletes. They've recruited at a very, very high level. They are, you know, long and fast and, you know, very athletic. They've got a quarterback that's playing, I believe, his 6th year of football. Who's played a ton of games, who's, you know, depending on who you talk to, the top senior quarterback in the country. He's the kind of guy who, like last week, can beat you with his legs, maybe even more so because he's got more speed, but throws the ball extremely well as well. So he puts a lot of stress on you, and they've got targets like Troy Franklin that are excellent football players, and they've got a couple really good tight ends that were there when I was there, in Terrence Ferguson and you know, they've got a lot of weapons. We've got to learn from the mistakes that we made last weekend, get those things corrected. These guys are going to try to run the football, but they're going to do it in a little bit different ways, more like our offense does. I think they're more of an 11 personnel team. They will run some 12 and give you some issues there that we've got to, you know, get fixed. But you know, as far as a matchup, this is a heck of a challenge for us, and I anticipate this will be a great week of practice to get there.
You mentioned some miscommunication in the red zone. On that 4th and 7 with the blitz, it looked like the blitz was effective, but the tight end was open. Was that a miscommunication?
It was. It was, and so I've got to do a better job of putting our guys in more situations where they don't have miscommunications.
Coach McGuire was talking about Ben Roberts getting a bigger role this week. What have you seen from him? What do you expect from him?
Well, he really did a great job, I thought, in the spring. Made some tremendous growth. And then it was right at the end of our summer weight training period that he had an injury that set him back a couple weeks in camp. Since he's been back, he's been having to, you know, ramp up in a hurry, and he's getting better in a hurry. He's a great-sized kid who can run well. He's a former defensive back, so he's very fluid in space. And now, you know, with Jacob being down, he's going to have to take up a lot of that space.
Coach Quincy Leday had his first game as a Red Raider, and he forced a fumble early on. Do you think his physicality is going to help in this Oregon game?
Yeah, it's going to have to. They've got a big physical offensive line. They do a really good job. I think Alik Terry is their offensive line coach. They really run their running scheme very, very well. They play with great pad level, and they're athletic. And then in protections, you know, you got a bunch of guys that have really good balance and length. But was pleased with Quincy's play. You know, for him playing for us for the first time, you know, you never know how that's going to translate, but he's been practicing well, and I thought he did a really nice job on Saturday.
Next to Justin.
Coach, I know there's been some turnover over there since you've been there, but is there any familiarity with you on that for their defense?
Yeah, a few guys. You know, Brian Addison, Triquez Bridges were, you know, players that played for us when I was there with Coach Yates. Mace Funa was one of our edges. Jeff Bassa, who I think still starting for him at inside linebacker. Jamal Hill still on the squad, but they've switched him back to inside. So there's quite a few guys that are still there on the roster that I'm familiar with.
For the defensive line, kind of back to what he was talking about, but how do you guys match up with this big physical offensive line with two really shifty backs back there?
Well, we'll find out Saturday. We're not going to, you know, flinch. We're going to practice our tails off, and we expect a very, very physical game. You know, they're determined to run the football to, you know, to set up a lot of their passing game. We've got to do a great job setting edges. they've got a couple of really good backs that are explosive, shifty, hard to tackle. A lot of explosive plays out of that backfield. You go back to last year's tape and see those guys. I mean, Bucky's been very, very impressive. So our guys know, there's a challenge ahead of us, but that's what you live for as coaches and competitors. You want to play against the best, and we're going to get an opportunity this week.
Coach, obviously, I mean, when you put up the amount of points Oregon does, I mean, you think of the flash and flare, but it really, as he talked about, starts up front. I mean, what are you guys doing to meet that physicality?
Well, it's how we practice every week. I mean, we think we bring a physical brand of football, and if you don't, a team like Oregon's gonna maul you, like they did last week to a different opponent. We know we've got to play with great pad level and great physicality. We've got to set great edges with our outside backers and our field end. So we feel like we do a great job drilling that, and guys got to show up and take practice to the field. Bigger, more athletic guys, but it's the same things we do every week.
Your defense last week against Wyoming kind of fell off as the game went on. Do you think part of that was just the amount of plays you guys had to play with the offense struggling?
I don't know. I think that as the game goes on, guys do get a little wore out, particularly the first game. We had some guys that had played probably more reps than what we anticipated. Not so much because of anything the other side of the ball did, but we didn't get things done. We had to play some younger linebackers than we had anticipated, and they didn't get as many reps, but they got to play. That's why everybody's got to be ready, next man up mentality. There's no excuse. It's just, it's the reality of it, and guys got to step up and fill a void when there is one. So we'll have a great week of practice this week, and our guys will come out ready to compete come Saturday night.
And Joey talked about it, but with Jacob Rodriguez being out, Isaac Smith, just kind of how does that change what you're doing at the linebacker spot?
Just give somebody else an opportunity. Ben's going to be the one to get the first crack probably at it, and we'll go from there.
I'll go next to Jeff McGuire in front.
Going the long way.
Coach, how does the defensive performance you saw Saturday night compare to what you had seen in fall practice and in spring with regards to some of the mental mistakes that they were making? It felt like maybe trying to do too much, specifically in the second half, or was Saturday an anomaly? I guess it'd be kind of the way I'm...
Well, you hate to, pin it on an anomaly. I thought we came out, we played really well to start the football game. Created some takeaways. Playing against a team that does multiple personnel groupings that we don't see as much in this league. We didn't practice as much. We obviously did the last 2 weeks, but, they're able to do things that they didn't put on tape last year. And sometimes, our guys, particularly young players, having to see for the first time and the speed at which they play. And I want to give credit to Wyoming. I thought they had a great plan. I thought that their offensive line was very well coached, and they run their scheme, their running scheme very, very well. Having said that, I think we limited their running game except for that quarterback run, and we got to do a much better job in that.
The Tech fan base has been afraid of a running quarterback for, it feels like, over 20 years. And it's always felt like for us that it's every running quarterback is going to have a great day. As a defensive coordinator, that keeps you up at night, a running quarterback that can be that kind of effective.
No doubt. You look at football theory, and everyone talks about having 7 or 8 guys in the box. Well, when the quarterback's part of the running game, that's the hat that's not accounted for. If you're going to have a safety in the middle of the field, so you've got to do some things to try to change pictures so that it's not obvious to the quarterback whether or not it should be a good time for him to pull it and actually run it. And then particularly for I think for the quarterback we're facing this week, he does a great job of if the play down the field is not there, extending the play, and if it's still not there, taking it, running it, and making big plays. And that's where you've got to really limit the damage that's done by someone like that. And you're right, it gives a lot of defense coordinators, a lot of sleepless nights trying to, put all that together.
Coach, can you speak on Josiah Pierre? I mean, he goes from on the verge of a major targeting call early on in the game and then goes on to have a career game for him, first time at inside linebacker.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm sure when that flag was first thrown and you get targeting called against you, you go through the mental gymnastics of, man, I may be out of this game. But he didn't worry about that. We were pretty certain that there was not going to be a targeting call because he didn't target. We differ in our opinion on whether it was a late hit because I thought the quarterback slid, right before, JP was there to tackle him, but it is what it is. I think, especially with Jacob going out, I thought, he had to step up more, and he did, particularly in his production, but we've got to get him a little bit cleaner in some of the techniques that we got him to play. So.
All right, well.
No, Don's got to have one.
What will we think?
Tim, I guess a couple of weeks ago, or all spring, most of camp, that boundary edge position looked like a really deep group with Steve and Isaac and Bryce and other guys. How do you feel about it now that Joey confirmed today that Isaac is done for this season? And it's Bryce obviously back on the field, but trying to get back to where he was previously.
Yeah. Obviously, it's a big loss for us losing Isaac. I thought he probably improved on our team from when we got here till last December, and then seeing how much he got bigger and stronger and faster into fall camp, more so than anybody that, at least on defense. And we were really excited for him and Steve to just keep each other fresh and be able to go. So that's a big loss, but, it creates an opportunity for someone else. Bryce obviously is still in that phase of where he's not quite 100%. He's doing some great things for us, but I don't know that he's ready to play 60 snaps in a football game. And so now we have some opportunities for some of our younger guys. Terrell Tillman is going to have a chance to step up there. Harvey Dyson, who played a little bit for us on Saturday. Those guys are, going to have some opportunities to take some of those snaps.
I think we're good now.
All right.
Thanks, Coach.
Coach, did the play calling in the last three quarters of the game was a result to not have as much of stuff and tape for Oregon to look at, or was it more just example of trying to give what Wyoming was able to give you?
Yeah, I'd say the latter part there. I mean, you go back and you look, starting the second quarter, we had 3 drives in a row where it was just like bad football. We were about to throw Mason Tharp a wide open crossing pattern on the first drive there. Ball slips out of the quarterback's hands. The next drive, we end up throwing an interception on play 2 of the drive. The next drive, you have a kind of a fast motion by our running back that he goes too quick, and we fumbled the snap to get you in 3rd and long. So we just had a couple series there that really hurt us. And then, again, I thought we moved the ball pretty well for the most part of the game, but we just got to limit some of those 3 and outs and some of those big mistakes.
Limitation of only having 4 drives in that second half, how do you attack a team like Oregon who is going to perhaps you're going to have to play score versus score?
Yeah, I mean, I gotta be more aggressive as a play caller. I mean, again, at the end of the day, that this comes back to me. We got to be a lot better on offense to go win that game last Saturday. So I got to be more aggressive this week and take some shots downfield and try to hit our spots in the run game when we can. And again, just try to put our guys in the best situation to be successful.
We'll go to Jarrett and then Jeff.
Hey, Coach, what would you say the offense's identity is at this point of the season?
I mean, it's kind of hard to say after just one game, you know. I mean, again, I thought we did some really good stuff. You know, we started fast, clearly, and got on the board. And then, again, you just had some of those really things kind of start to unravel for you and go downhill. And towards the end of the game, I thought we kind of were catching our groove a little bit there towards the end. And unfortunately, we just kind of ran out of time there. But we just got to keep chopping wood, man. I mean, we're week 2. I mean, I'm fired up for this football season. We still have every goal ahead of us that we're looking for. Big 12 championship is still out there for us, and that's really the ultimate goal. So we're week 2, and we're going to continue to get better. I have no doubt about that.
What's your evaluation of Tyler's performance in
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say he played outstanding, but I think he played good enough for us to win the game. You know, I know there's a lot of people saying that he was inaccurate in some stuff at times, and he had a couple big throws that he was for sure. And I think more than anything, like whenever I watch him and I evaluate that, he was aiming the ball a couple times that made the ball go low. But again, man, you go back and you watch the game. I mean, he had a couple big-time deep balls that we connected on. He's got dudes sitting in his lap. And so, again, did he play outstanding? Did he grade out at 90+%? No. But he played good enough for us to win that game. But at the end of the day, it wasn't good enough for him or for me. And we got to get better this week for sure.
Coach, when you go back and look at Tyler's game, he had a couple of really bad tip balls right at the line of scrimmage that somebody just got a hand up. And while that does happen, that, if I remember correctly, happened a couple of times in the spring game as well. Is that a mechanic issue that you guys are working on him with to get maybe a little more loft, specifically right in front of those big defensive linemen?
Yeah, I think when you go back to the spring game, that's something that him and I talked about after the spring game. One thing I did think he was really changing his arm slot at times in the spring. I do think he's improved on that. You know, when you go back and you look at the at the line balls that got batted down to the line of scrimmage, I think you got to look at the entirety of the play. You know, we had one where we're doing a sprint out right, and the ball is low left. So that's going to, you know, clearly affect the quarterback's vision immediately. You have one where we're doing a zone blocking scheme and our offensive line doesn't block it correctly on an RPO that gets that one batted down. And then, you know, he had a couple more that were definitely on him. And again, those are things that we got to work on. But I think more than anything, it's just doing the little things right and just trying to clean up some of those things. But, and again, he's got to work on his because he had two that were on him 100% where he knew a free blitzer was coming and just didn't get his arm up higher over that guy. But there's some of those two that we've got to do a better job with all 11 of our football players at once.
And while the 81 points that Oregon scored last week stands out, had a pretty good defensive performance as well. How do you attack that this week?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's tough. They were up 50-7 or whatever it was at halftime. So, you know, what are they showing? What are they not showing? But I think you really bank back on last year's film a lot too and see what they did. And I mean, they're a very multiple defense. They mix up the fronts. They mix up the coverages. They blitz a little bit here and there. But you know, again, they're very talented. You know, they got 4 starters on this depth chart that were transfers from last year that you only saw limited snaps in this last game. So again, you know, it's going to be interesting to see kind of if they come out and show what they did, or do they mix up some of the stuff they do because they've got some of these transfers in. So, but again, all we can do is go in and base kind of off the game plan and the tendencies of what they've shown on tape, and again, try to put our guys in the best situation to be successful that we can.
Hey, Coach. It seemed like Jerome only got the ball there in the fourth. He got it like once or twice, I think, up until the fourth quarter. Do you think? And then it started to really seem to work for him. Ended up being leading wide receiver. So, do you think we'll see more thrown to him this week, or maybe why wasn't he utilized more until the fourth quarter?
Yeah, I mean, you know, he had 14 targets in the game. He was our #1 targeted receiver. He did have 8 catches. And again, we had quite a few balls that we were maybe going to go to him on, and our tight ends as well, looking back on it, where we just had maybe, you know, some issues in the pass protection where we couldn't quite get through some of those progressions. But, I mean, he's definitely a guy that we're trying to get touches to. And again, I think when you look on paper, you know, he was our most targeted guy, and so we're really going to try to get him the ball as much as we can.
Coach, against Wyoming, Tyler ran 15 times. Was that just a situational thing, you know, trying to increase the numbers advantage in the run game, or is that something we can expect to see more of going forward?
Yeah, you know, I didn't call one quarterback run actually called play until overtime. Now, in overtime, I did call some quarterback runs. But again, I've said it before, he likes to run, he's going to run. He called his own number a few times. It was a 3rd and 5, and we had a pass concept on an empty, and he checked quarterback draw on his own and took it for a first down. You know, he scrambled a couple times for 9 and 12 yards in that window. He pulled a zone read where they scraped off the edge, and he's got to pull it. Again, you're going to see some quarterback runs throughout the year for sure, but you're talking, I think I called maybe 4 to 5 total that were my calls. The other 5 of him were calling his own number, him scrambling, making plays.
We'll go next to Justin and then David.
Coach, I was curious about what you saw from the offensive line. Seemed like Tyler had some clean pockets, and also what kind of push they got and uses of Taj Brooks.
Yeah, we didn't play our best up front, if I'm being honest with you, in my opinion. I thought, and we covered this yesterday, I thought Rusty was pretty erratic with his snaps at times. And again, you talk about timing with the quarterback. I mean, if he's got to go low for a ball or high for a ball, or, we're thinking quick game to the right and the snaps to our left, all those things are huge, deal of importance for us. So that's an area where we've got to improve. I thought our tackles played pretty well overall, but I thought our interior 3 definitely has some room to improve. Again, we had some clean pockets at times. I thought a lot of those clean pockets when we were going tempo vertical game, which is usually how it goes. When you're playing tempo, usually the D-line doesn't get as good of a rush. But we also had a couple times where Tyler made some big-time throws with some people in his lap too. So definitely an area where we got to get better, and I believe in those guys. I've said it all fall camp, said it all spring. I believe in those guys. I think it was just, you look back at a guy like Cole Spencer, people maybe not realize he hasn't played a snap of football in 20 months, of real football. Rusty Stats, that was probably his second biggest game he's ever been in his life in a hostile environment. And so I think, some of that stuff is nerves, and we're going to come in and we're going to calm down. And again, I have full faith in that offensive line. I think those guys are going to continue to step it up as we go.
Coach, how about the traditional run game? What were your thoughts on how Taj and Cameron did?
I mean, I thought they did all they could. When you look at the stats, the run game was pathetic. 33 carries, 2.8 yards a carry. And again, I think that we had some open holes, but those holes escaped quickly. I think we were just kind of missing some blocks. I use this phrase a lot. We're playing with 10, where 10 guys are doing their job. We have one guy not doing their job. But again, we gotta create bigger holes for those guys where they can go, and we got to finish blocks. At the second level especially. I thought we struggled at times in some of our gap scheme blocks, some of our back blocks. Again, some of our deuce and ace blocks on the combo blocks there. Just an area we got to improve, and that's Coach Hamby and I talked yesterday, and we've talked this morning. That's an area we've got to get better, because we've got to be able to get those guys the ball and give them a hole. Where we're if you're talking 2 to 3 yards a carry, that's not what you're looking for, and those are the things that you can't have, because that's going to make us as an offense one-dimensional, because you're talking 2 yards a carry. That's not going to cut it, so we're going to start airing that thing out a little bit. So we've got to get a lot more improvement. We got to get better push. We got to finish blocks at the second level, so we can try not to be one-dimensional in the pass game only.
As coach this as well, for Tyler, I know it's been on the schedule forever, but at the same time, it's game week now, and he's playing his former team. Do you have any message to him? Did you talk to him about anything in particular leading up to the game, so he's not too amped up once the game does start? Yeah, we've had multiple talks, not even this week, but just leading up to this, from the jump, that whenever we get to this point, that this can't be his Super Bowl, And again, he's been up here for an hour and a half in the meeting room by himself watching film, breaking them down on his own. He's a pro, man, and I think he's going to come in and handle this thing the right way. After we broke from practice last night, players are going to go see their coaches and have individual meetings, and he called everybody up, and he gave them a talk and basically said, hey, this is on us as an offense that we didn't win this last game. And now it's time to really go show who we really are. And I think he rallied those guys. And again, at heart, is this going to mean something to him? I think, of course, kind of like me whenever I came back at Houston Baptist and I played here at Texas Tech. It meant something, But he's a pro, man, and so I don't think there's going to be any issues with him thinking that it's too big or that he's got to press or do extra. Part of that's on me, right? I got to get him into some easy plays, get him comfortable early, and then we just got to keep our foot on the gas pedal and keep rolling.
Nathan and then Chuck, and then we'll finish with Don.
Sorry, 14 and then 17 early, there weren't as many run plays called. Do you think that was something that you would maybe want to do if you could do it over again, or do you think the offensive line was part of that decision making?
You're saying early in the first quarter while we threw it more?
When up 14-17 in that kind of span, I noticed there were a lot of pass plays called.
Yeah, early on, again, I think when you look at it, we hit them on the first drive, we started rolling with some tempo, and we had, explosive play, explosive play, playing fast, where we just caught them off guard, and our guys made really good plays right there. And Tyler was sharp those first few drives, and then, defense got us the ball back, so we're almost in the red zone already from the jump, and have a good play, and then we throw a nice ball up to Jaden York, who made an outstanding catch in the end zone there, and then again just. Again, I've said it, my philosophy is going to be we're going to try to take what the defense gives us. We knew coming into that game it was going to be probably tough sledding in the run game because of the extra hat in the box. But I did not want to be fully one-dimensional. I wanted to be able to try to run the football as much as we could. And so, yeah, I mean, again, if Oregon's going to come down, they're going to press Manis and add a hat to the box, we're going to have to throw the football. And if they're going to play two high safeties, then we've got to do a good job in the run game and sprinkling our RPOs, and we can hit those. Because that's something else, too, that I think that when you really look at, we threw a lot of RPOs in the run game. And so if you add those yardage and those balls that we threw on the RPOs, you're really running the ball, in theory, more than you're passing the ball. Dre McCray had a couple big catches on some RPOs, and we threw some just stick routes with them playing some soft coverage and some of those things, because those are big plays. I'm a firm believer to taking what the defense gives you. If you can get 5 yards a pop, let's go get 5 yards a pop.
Coach, what will the impact of having Nehemiah Martinez be back for you next week?
Yeah, it's going to be nice having him back. He's kind of our Swiss Army knife. He can do a lot. I think it'll help Coach Perry on special teams as well. But him being able to come in and get some reps at running back for us and play in the slot some and just use him in different ways. I'm excited to have him back. He got cleared late last week and hadn't been able to practice a whole lot up to that point. So we kind of really excited to get him back this week so we can get a full slate of practice and hopefully make a big impact for us Saturday night.
Go ahead, Don.
Zach, you've talked for a while about Jaden York putting himself in position to play and kind of his emergence from walk-on to where he is now. How did you feel about, one, you got him into the game early, and two, just the execution on that touchdown pass, his role in that play, and his role in that play? How did you feel about the execution?
Yeah, I mean, I said it the other week, he's a tremendous kid, man, and he works really, really hard. And so all the work that he's put him into that moment when we knew whenever we went 12 personnel, him and Mason were going to run out there together for the first bit. And then we're, clearly going to rotate in Baylor here and there too. But as far as the play call goes with the touchdown, I mean, I'll be honest, we hadn't thrown him the ball all week on that, and so that was just kind of Tyler felt like he liked his matchup one-on-one, put up a really good ball, catchable ball, and then just what an unbelievable play by Jaden to go get that ball. So fired up for him. We had a couple more that I was hoping to get those guys some touches. I think I heard Coach hit on early. We had Mason Tharp for wide open deep ball. The defensive back fell on, and we had a busted pass protection on a play action. But yeah, Jaden's been great, and again, just looking forward to seeing him continue to get better.
All right, that will do it for today.